Golf Central on YouTube is brought to you by the new Paradigm Woods and Irons from Callaway.
I'm Whit Watson with your Golf Central update. The PGA Tour and the DP World Tour are co-sanctioning the event this week at the Renaissance Club for the Genesis Scottish Open, part of the Rolex Series. But even overseas, the players could not escape the fallout from Tuesday's Senate hearings about the PGA Tour PIF partnership, including Xander Schauffele, who had this to say about Commissioner Jay Monahan.
Have your feelings or trust level in Jay changed?
Thanks, Doug. Yes, they have.
Be willing to elaborate? Well, let me just say this: how much work do you think Jay has to restore trust if it's lacking in players, and is it a impossible task?
We got a memo that he'll be back on the 17th, and if you want to call this sort of like, I have a pretty young tour career, but one of the rockier times on tour. The guy who was supposed to be there for us wasn't. Obviously, he had some health issues. So I'm glad we got the memo. I'm glad that he said he's feeling much better. But yeah, I'd say he has a lot of tough questions to answer in his return. And I don't trust people easily. He had my trust, and he has a lot less of it now. So I don't stand alone when I say that. And yeah. He'll just have to answer a lot of really hard questions when he comes back.
Here is the schedule for the week. In addition to the Scottish Open, the PGA Tour also holding an additional event, the Barbasol Championship in Kentucky, the LPGA in Ohio for the Dana Open, PGA Tour Champions holding its next major, the Colleague Companies Championship at Firestone. Right now, we'll go back to Scotland, where Rex Hoggard had more reaction on Tuesday's hearings.
24 hours after Tuesday's historic hearing in Washington, D.C., the buzz here in Scotland was still all about what PGA Tour officials were able to tell U.S. senators about that framework agreement, and maybe more importantly, what they weren't able to tell them.
I just think that yesterday we didn't really learn a whole lot again. As a player on tour, we still don't really have a lot of clarity as to what's going on, and that's a bit worrisome. As they keep saying it's a player-run organization, and we don't really have the information that we need to kind of. I don't even know how to comment. I watched part of yesterday, and I didn't learn anything. So I really don't know what to say.
I think they've certainly tried to. The communication, there's been a lot more emails coming through and regularly to make sure we feel like we're at least kept abreast of it. So, it's a process, isn't it? The whole thing. I mean, there was a reaction from the start, and now trying to find some kind of ground where things can move forward would be good.
You said there was a reaction from the start. Do you feel like the temperature in the room, at least among the players, is maybe toned down a little bit?
I think that's probably right, but that normally happens over time. But I don't think any of the actual position seems to change, but I don't know that for sure either. So, still trying to fully understand the framework, and hopefully we can move forward and get some resolve on things soon so we don't have to keep doing this.
What do you think the next step in the process is? You are a member of the PAC, and you will go to the policy board next year. Do you have any idea?
Yeah, hopefully it's all solved before I'm on the board next year. Yeah, look, I don't know. I mean, I think that the tricky thing for a few guys who are on the PAC and certainly on the board is kind of balancing actually playing golf and managing this. It's a lot that's come onto their plate, and for this week and next week, I'd like my head to be squarely into the golf.
Well, yeah, sure. I think from the very get-go, to have the independents on our board and the player board members have no idea that it was going to happen is, I think, relatively unusual for a business. And then since then, just, with our commissioner having to leave for health reasons, and then just the continuation of hearing and seeing things about certain categories of what the deal might be different week to week. We just don't really know what's going on. I think getting into a position where communication is better leaves us in a position to where we could actually even see if we want to entertain what this could look like. And that's, this has nothing to do with the agreement itself. I mean, it's simply just getting open lines of communication on a member-run organization at the board level, and before we could even decide if this would be something we'd even want to even entertain. So we're put in a position, you know, in a place where we may or may not have even wanted to decide this, and it looks like we wanted to do this, and a lot of people are upset because we made the decisions not to, you know, to go to live for any number of reasons that people had, and all of a sudden, you know, it kind of comes back around and makes us look bad when we haven't even had any say in it. So that part's tough. We feel like we're in between a little bit of a rock and a hard place. I think there's some good that can come out of it, but it's going to require quite a bit of work between the players and our board pretty soon.
Now, one player who showed up this week and didn't want to focus on all that turmoil outside the ropes was Rory McIlroy, who told me he shows up this week as the clear favorite and with a clear focus on not just this week, but also next week's Open Championship.
Yeah, so I think, I played 4 weeks in a row, and then having 2 weeks off where I took, at least the first week of that 2 weeks completely off. I didn't touch a club for a little bit after that 4 week stretch, and I think just to get some competitive golf under my belt, get a scorecard in my hand and play. It's not pure links at this place, but it's linksy enough conditions. At least you're playing in a bit of breeze, and you're maybe getting some visuals that you would get at a links course. So I think just all of that will obviously be, will be good with one eye towards next week and the Open. But it's a big tournament, and I can make points on both sides of the pond for looking later down down the line at the end of the year for FedEx Cup and Race to Dubai and all that stuff. So I think this week serves a few purposes.
You just told Scott you're as confident in your game now as you have been in a really, really long time. Obviously, going back to Hoylake, we have so many good feelings. Is it a challenge, though, to temper your expectations? And if so, how do you do that?
Absolutely. I sort of dealt with that at Augusta this year. I felt like my game was in really good shape, and then I just didn't produce what I needed to produce the first 2 days, and that was disappointing. And I think I learned a lot from that, and just about playing a golf tournament. There's 72 holes is a long time. A lot can happen. It's a journey. It's a journey to get yourself into contention and to be there on Sunday afternoon. And there's a lot of golf shots to be hit and a lot of golf to be played. And the worst thing you can do in this game is get ahead of yourself.
Now, Wednesday's Pro-Am format here at the Genesis Scottish Open is a 9-9 format, which means players are only required to play 9 holes, but Rory decided to go ahead and play all 18, and when I asked him why, he said he really wanted to focus on getting his game ready for links golf, and again, not just this week, but next week at Hoylake. Whit?